and would preclude the Social Security Department for going against those who are working using fake Social Security numbers. But first, in the first half of the show, we're going to talk about the Blackwater scandal that is unfolding right now in Congress. Blackwater, a private security company employed by the U.S. State Department in Iraq for protection of U.S. assets, is under extreme scrutiny for allegedly inappropriately opening fire on Iraqi civilians on a number of occasions. 11 Iraqis were killed in a shootout with Blackwater security personnel last month. In a previous incident, a bodyguard for Iraq's vice president was killed, and Blackwater stands accused of covering up yet another death. Blackwater's founder, a former Navy SEAL, told a congressional committee investigating these allegations today that 30 of its operatives have been killed while protecting U.S. diplomats in Iraq, but none of those they were assigned to protect, he says, have died. The congressional committee is also investigating whether Blackwater is being overpaid for the services it provides. Well, today's guest on News Talk Online is Charles Hollifer, who wrote a well-researched novel called The Contractor. It covers, among other things, secret prisons, hired contractors in the war on terror, interrogation practices, and torture. Hollifer grew up in Iowa, attended the Iowa Writers' Workshop, and later the University of Paris. His short fiction has appeared in the New England Review, the North American Review, as well as other magazines. His short story, Prospects of Joy, was selected for the Book of Arrows anthology. He has also published nonfiction and reviews. He teaches at the University of Poitiers. I believe I pronounced that correctly. And in spring 2007, he was a courtesy visiting associate professor at the University of Oregon in Eugene. So I welcome you to News Talk Online, Charles.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. So let's take this back a little bit. How long has this practice been going on where the United States government has been employing private security folks who are mainly paramilitary people, mercenaries, some would allege, to protect U.S. assets in dangerous places overseas?
Well, there have been contractors of various sorts for a long time, but what is really unprecedented now is just the proportions. For instance, if you think back not so long ago to the Persian Gulf War back in '91, we had about more than 500,000 military personnel, even up to 540,000 military personnel, and we had about 9,200 contractors. Now, there's a definite proportion there. Now, today, for instance, in Iraq, depending on whom you believe, because I see lots of numbers floating around the media, but it's between, say, 160 to 180,000 contractors in Iraq. That's as many or more than the number of troops after the surge. This is the sort of thing people don't talk about too much. And recently, finally, this is getting some attention. People are raising questions, and I think it'll be good that things will become more transparent.
Well, are they acting within the law, or are they acting in an extrajudicial manner as they attempt to protect U.S. diplomats in Iraq?
Oh, that's, we have to go by a case-by-case basis, because I would be reluctant to generalize. But one thing which is clear is that they're acting in a place in a zone where the law is not always that clear. It's only around last fall in 2006 that there was a thing added on whereby they had to respect the Uniform Code of Military Justice. In the previous years before that, it was a little murkier. In theory, I mean, sometimes the media has exaggerated and said that no laws apply to them. Well, that's not really true, that you can prosecute someone under the War Crimes Act or anti-torture statute or things like that. But the question is enforcement. Very difficult to enforce the law or laws when there's a case of an alleged abuse or even to bring charges. Whereas in contrast, for instance, an American soldier is obliged to respect the Uniform Code of Military Justice, 24 hours a day, 7 days. Rigorous code, and the military can be accused of dragging their feet on prosecuting people for alleged abuses, but the fact is there is a structure which exists there which can address abuses, whereas in the case of the private contractors, it's trickier. Even if you did now, since 2006, try to hold someone accountable, that would amount to court-martialing a civilian, and that's very tricky constitutionally. And if you go down that road, you're going down the road with a busload of lawyers, and it's a recipe for complications, if not trouble.
Right. So I don't know how they can be ordered to uphold the military code of conduct when they are civilians, even though many of them are ex-military. On the other hand, where is there any controls over what these various individuals do? They were contracted by the State Department. Is the State Department adequately overseeing their operations?
Well, that's a good question, because there's some attention that emerged in today's testimony when Eric Prince, did go on Capitol Hill, and he made his case for Blackwater, and in response, to the report, and according to Representative Waxman, he raised some serious questions about the State Department's involvement. The one example, there's a shooting that people have often referred to, the so-called Christmas Eve back in 2006, where a contractor is accused of having shot someone when he was drunk. And according to the report, the State Department gave advice to the company about how much to pay the family, and then allowed the contractor, allegedly involved in this, to leave Iraq 36 hours after the shooting. And there has been access to internal emails, and which show apparently the State Department debating about the size of the payment. And one can't help but wonder, well, is the State Department, who's working for whom? Is the State Department's job to help get Blackwater employees out of a jam? And what's happening on the Hill now is there are some turf battles going on, and in a concerted effort just to find out more information, because there has been a lack of accountability or transparency at the very least.
So in the instance that they are discussing, where the 11 Iraqis were killed, my understanding is that Blackwater is claiming that they came under attack. Just a handful of their operatives, there were 20 of them there protecting the diplomats, only 5 returned fire. And then vehicles started approaching them that they feared were suicide bombers. And so they opened fire and inadvertently killed innocent Iraqi civilians. This kind of judgment, shoot, don't shoot kind of situation goes on all the time with regard to the military in Iraq. Do the same rules apply to Blackwater as apply to the military?
That's a very tricky question. In theory, Blackwater is only involved in defensive operations. Only they do not deal in any offensive operations. Thus, by definition, they would not be in a position of taking the offensive. And so, in that sense, they have that a set of rules there, whereby the military, depending on the mission, will measures. But what's happening now is, we do have competing versions of what really happened on September 16th, and there are at least 3 investigations going on. I don't know. It's quite possible. We'll see, but it's quite possible they'll come to 3 different conclusions. When during Prince's testimony today about that incident, he said, claimed he'd been treated unfairly in the media, that people jump to too many conclusions, and it's true. I think we do have to wait for the fruit of investigations, but at the same time, he hastened to add his own conclusion that Blackwater USA had acted within the law and